In the latest edition of ThoughtWorks Technology Radar, one of the items that they discuss and they recommend to adopt is the CI/CD infrastructure as a service, meaning to not develop your own CI/CD, but use existing one as a service, and there are a couple of ones: GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps, GitLab CI/CD, and there are probably more. So let's read this and discuss a little bit. So the options for CI/CD infrastructure as a service have become so manifold and mature that the cases in which it's worth managing your entire CI infrastructure yourself are becoming very rare. So in the past, we used to build everything, have scripts. I've even saw cases where actual whole scripts and whole ecosystems were developed in-house, but that was okay for the time because tools did not exist. So then some tools came about like Puppet for infrastructure management and Jenkins. And today we have it as a service, even as an external service to use. Okay, so the option for CI/CD infrastructure as a service have become so manifold and mature that the cases in which it's worth managing your entire CI infrastructure yourself are becoming very rare. Using managed services like GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps, or GitLab CI/CD comes with all the common advantages and trade-offs of managed cloud services. You don't have to spend time, effort, and hardware cost on maintenance and operations of this often complex infrastructure. Teams can take advantage of elasticity and self-service, whereas provisioning more of the right agents or getting a new plugin or feature are often a bottleneck in companies that host CI/CD themselves. Yeah, so adding features. If you host it yourself, then added features will incur effort. Even the use cases that require to run, build, and verifications on your own hardware can now mostly be covered with self-hosted runners. We've written about some for GitHub Actions, Action Runners, and Controllers, and the Philips self-hosted GitHub Runner. Okay, so they say that even though you host the CI/CD in a service and you host your code in a service, let's say in GitHub, then you can still use your own hardware by the actions. I mean, you can configure it to run the builds on your nodes, on your own nodes. Note, however, that you won't get out of the box security just because you're using managed services. That's always the case. Always security should be treated. While, I mean, we can still commit a password into a Git repository. We can still have scripts that run something which is prone to send our code somewhere. So it's still not fully solved. And we still need to handle this. While mature services provide all the security, and we'll see, they discuss this, security features for you, your need, you'll still need to use them to implement zero trust security for your CI/CD. So let's first look at GitHub Actions. What is it exactly? GitHub Actions. So they say also to adopt, this is another item that I mentioned, to adopt GitHub Actions, right? Which when adopt means we feel strongly that the industry should be adopting these items. We use them when appropriate in projects. GitHub Actions has become the default starting point for many teams that need to get CI/CD up and running quickly in a greenfield environment. Among other things, it can take on more complex workflows and call other actions in composite actions. Let's look what GitHub Actions is. Okay, GitHub Actions documentation, automate, customize, and execute software development workflows right in your repository with GitHub Actions. You can discover, create, and share actions to perform any job you like. The whole point of CI/CD is when I commit a code, do this. So this is probably what GitHub Actions is. Let's look at the quick start. So they say, you only need GitHub repository to create and run a GitHub Actions workflow. In this guide, you'll add a workflow that demonstrates some of the essential features. GitHub Actions, a following example can show you how GitHub Actions jobs can automatically be triggered. Create your first workflow. So you create a file at .github/workflows. Okay, directory. You create this directory, github.github workflows directory in your repository on GitHub if this directory does not already exist. 2. In the GitHub workflows directory, create a file names GitHub Actions demo.yaml. So you'll probably create multiple files for multiple actions. I guess this file would get some, what is the trigger, what is the input, and what do we need to do, and how to do this, maybe on which nodes to do this, and what to do with the result. Let's see this. As always, input, run, and output. 3, copy the following YAML. So this is an example YAML. Name, GitHub Actions demo, run name, GitHub actor, probably the user that is running this. Or no, not necessarily the user. GitHub actor is testing out GitHub Actions. Could be the user. On push, this is the trigger. Okay, so we have a name, the trigger, which is a push, and then the jobs. The jobs are run on this image, probably Docker image. Do this, echo, the job was automatically triggered. So this is the image to run, and run these bash commands. And we have here some variables from GitHub, like GitHub ref, runner OS, GitHub repository, checking out the repository code, actions, users. Okay, so they have ready-made commands. So we don't need to actually code the command to check out because they have actions/checkout. So they probably have many actions that you can do, some building blocks. Good. And run this command again, another echo, run, ls, and run. Okay, so we could run here a test. We could run here whatever, a deployment. We can run a load test. And I wonder which other GitHub actions. First, we can see that YAML files are very readable. We can see the name of the GitHub actions, the input, the output. Okay, the next step, scroll to the bottom of the page and select create a new branch for this commit and start a pull request because we want to push on github.com. Navigate to the main page, click actions, and now we are going to see this action because we committed. So GitHub actions as code, we committed our infrastructure from the list workflow run. Click the name of the run you want to see. In this example, username is testing GitHub actions. In the left sidebar of the workflow page, under jobs, click the explore GitHub actions job. And once we do a push, we should view the logs. The logs show you each step was processed. Expand to see the actual steps. Okay. So this was the beginning, and then we have many more steps, I guess, for this. More ready-made GitHub actions. They mentioned about the zero security, right? So let's see what exactly they mean by zero security. I guess they will mention a couple of best practices for security because they said also if you don't host the CI/CD locally, you should still take into account security. This was in this section of the CI/CD where they said to adopt the external CI/CD. They said, yeah, although it's a part of the self-hosted CI/CD, should still use zero trust security for your CI/CD. What does zero trust security means? It would mean the best practices for zero trust security. Okay, we keep hearing about the enterprise finding their security badly compromised. Basically, it means they do not store passwords, manage the scripts, and many more best practices on how to manage the security. What should you put in the variable names? Keep scope as low as possible for whatever permissions, use SSO, etc., etc. So this was the basic recommendations of Technology Radar about the tools have already advanced. You can now not develop your own CI/CD infrastructure. Use the service, remote service, self-host remote service by GitHub, by Azure, by AWS. Use their CI/CD. Make sure you have the proper security, and that's it. They have good stuff for you. This is what they recommend. Use the external services CI/CD infrastructure that was built for you.